All right, shall we get started? Thanks everybody for coming to session 72, I think it is, which is on the pathway to deployment of gene-drive mosquitoes as a potential biocontrol tool for elimination of malaria. What we're going to do here today is review a recently published study that considered whether mosquitoes modified with low-threshold gene drive could be developed appropriately for use against malaria, and if so, what resources and activities would be needed to ensure their safe, ethical, and efficient field testing and implementation. This took as a case study, as a case study, gene drive strategies for control of malaria transmission in Anopheles gambiae mosquitoes, which, as everyone knows here, is a prominent malaria vector found in Africa. The study looked only at self-propagating forms of gene drive, and in particular what's been called low-threshold gene drive, which is intended to establish and spread from low initial release frequencies or even rare introductions. The study took into account strategies that are aimed at population or replacement or population modification approaches, where they're trying to limit mosquitoes' ability to transmit the malaria parasite, and also population suppression or population reduction approaches, which are aimed at reducing overall numbers of the targeted mosquito species. And as probably everyone in the room knows, proof of principle has been achieved for both of these strategies in the laboratory. Now, why did we focus on specifically on low threshold drive? Well, I think this graphic, which our colleagues from the New Partnership for Africa's Development like to use a lot, goes a long way to answering that question. It just shows very remarkably what the actual range is of malaria transmission on the continent, and it goes a long way to explaining why delivery of conventional control tools has been so challenging. So theoretically, low threshold gene drive could provide a tool that would only need to be delivered simply and infrequently, and it could provide cost-effective and durable protection with no need for human behavior change. And in fact, modeling has suggested that situations that are challenging for traditional vector control tools actually can make it easier for gene drive to succeed. So in order to address this very important and comprehensive question, we assembled a multidisciplinary group of international experts who worked with us for over a year looking at this issue. And we brought in additional experts to help address specific topics that arose as we thought about this entire pathway. And then when the draft recommendations were completed, we had them reviewed by a group of external reviewers that had no association with the project. So all in all, more than 60 people contributed to the development of these recommendations. The recommendations were built on relevant prior guidance. Darn, keep doing that. Can we go back there? I'm having trouble getting back. Oh, well, anyway. They were built on relevant prior guidance, including the WHO guidance framework for testing genetically modified mosquitoes, which was published in 2014 and described a phased pathway for testing of GM mosquitoes with systematic assessment of safety and efficacy at each step. That's this one. And then also the Gene Drives on the Horizon report that was issued by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine in 2016, which provided general principles to guide responsible practices in gene drive research across many applications. So the working group took into consideration what we felt was a very important need to move beyond the discussion of risks and benefits in a very general way and talk about the specific risks and benefits of a particular application of gene drive technology. So their charge was to envision the range of requirements for testing and implementing gene drive modified Anopheles gambiae, specifically in Africa, and that included consideration of containment requirements, efficacy and safety testing, monitoring, ethics, stakeholder engagement, policy, and regulatory issues. They also needed to identify capacity and infrastructure needs that would have to be addressed to prepare for this pathway. And it was important to understand gene drive modified mosquitoes as a tool within an overall strategy for malaria elimination, which went a long way to thinking about some of the problems that people have raised in the past with this technology. And finally, the intention of the recommendations was to provide guidance to support planning by everybody, by developers, funders, regulators, and policymakers. So today's speakers are going to be, oh great, having a bad time here. Steve Lindsay, who was a member of the core working group, and he is going to give an overview of the recommendations. And then Willie Tanui, who is the former head of the Kenyan National Biosafety Authority, will talk about the regulatory and risk assessment challenges. And Claudia Emerson from McMaster will be talking about community and stakeholder engagement issues. And then my co-chair, Fred Rosakumu, and Mamadou Koulibaly on the end there will be sharing their thoughts about the development of this technology for Africa. And we're going to hold the questions until after all of these talks have been finished, and then we'll have an audience discussion session which Fred Rose will moderate. And with that, I'll ask Steve to